India is one of the fastest growing economies in the world, home to over 1.4 billion people, a rising tech industry, and bold ambitions to become a global superpower. But there's one thing that continues to hold it back: infrastructure. From chaotic traffic jams and overloaded railways to collapsing bridges and underfunded power grids, India's infrastructure is often described as decades behind its aspirations. The question is, why is it so bad, and can it ever be fixed? To understand the problem, we have to start with the scale of the challenge. India is massive, both in geography and population. It faces a population density that puts enormous strain on every road, railway, and airport. Every year, millions more people move from rural villages to already overcrowded cities, and that constant migration means urban infrastructure is perpetually playing catch-up. Imagine trying to expand highways fast enough when the number of cars on the road grows by millions each year. That's the scale India deals with daily. But the roots of the problem go back even further. During British colonial rule, railways and ports were built not to connect people or foster development, but to extract resources for export. This meant that from the start, India's infrastructure was designed with the wrong priorities in mind. After independence in 1947, the government focused heavily on industrialization and state-led development, but infrastructure projects were often underfunded and plagued with inefficiency. By the time India liberalized its economy in the 1990s, much of the basic infrastructure was already outdated and crumbling, and the country had to modernize while still carrying the weight of old, poorly planned systems. Add to that the challenges of politics and bureaucracy. Infrastructure projects in India are notorious for delays, corruption, and cost overruns. Land acquisition can take years. Environmental clearances are often mired in red tape, and multiple layers of government mean coordination is slow and fragmented. A new highway, for example, might require approvals from local, state, and national authorities, with each stage vulnerable to bribes, lawsuits, and political interference. By the time the project is finished, if it's finished at all, costs have doubled and quality has suffered. Then there's the issue of funding. Infrastructure is expensive, and India has always struggled to generate enough revenue to invest at the necessary scale. Tax collection rates are relatively low compared to other major economies, which limits government spending. Private investment helps, but many companies are wary of India's reputation for stalled projects and unpredictable regulations. Foreign investors, too, hesitate when they see frequent policy changes and contract disputes. Meanwhile, the infrastructure that does get built often struggles with maintenance. It's not uncommon to see brand new roads already riddled with potholes within a year, or bridges deteriorating before their time because of poor construction standards and lack of upkeep. Corruption in the contracting process means corners are cut, and without strict accountability, quality suffers. Beyond money and politics, there are also structural challenges. India is trying to develop 21st century infrastructure while still dealing with 19th century problems. Millions of people still lack reliable electricity, clean water, or basic sanitation. In rural areas, dirt roads remain the norm, cutting off villages from larger markets and opportunities. In cities, rapid growth has outpaced everything. Metros are packed beyond capacity, airports struggle with overcrowding, and highways are clogged with endless traffic. This isn't just an inconvenience, it actively drags down economic growth. Logistics costs in India are among the highest in the world, making goods more expensive to transport. Businesses lose productivity to power outages and traffic delays, and foreign companies often think twice before setting up operations in a country where supply chains can be so unpredictable. But to say that India's infrastructure is hopeless would be misleading, because in recent years there have been major improvements. The government has launched ambitious programs like Bharatmala for highways, Sagarmala for port modernization, and smart cities for urban development. The country has built thousands of kilometers of new expressways, expanded metro systems in cities like Delhi and Bangalore, and modernized airports that now rank among the best in the world. Renewable energy, especially solar, has grown rapidly, and India is now one of the leaders in clean energy capacity. The problem is that the scale of need still far outweighs the progress. For every new metro line, there are dozens of cities that don't even have basic public transport. For every modern airport terminal, there are smaller towns where people still rely on outdated facilities. For every high-speed expressway, there are thousands of rural roads waiting to be paved. The gap between what's being built and what's needed remains staggering. Ultimately, India's infrastructure struggles come down to three interlocking problems: size, governance, and resources. The sheer size of the population and geography makes the task monumental. The inefficiencies of governance, corruption, bureaucracy, delays, slow progress, and undermine quality. And limited resources, low tax revenue, cautious investors, high costs, mean projects are chronically underfunded. Until India can address all three, infrastructure will continue to be a bottleneck for its development. Still, the future isn't without hope. If India continues to push reforms that make it easier to do business, reduces corruption in public works, and prioritizes not just building but maintaining infrastructure, the situation could dramatically improve in the coming decades. The world has seen countries like China transform their infrastructure in a single generation. And while India's democratic and diverse system makes things more complicated, it doesn't make it impossible. The question is whether India's leaders will take the long-term view and invest consistently in the foundations of the nation, rather than chasing short-term political gains. Because at the end of the day, a nation is only as strong as the infrastructure that supports it.